everyone. Today I've decided to share with you one of the most exciting studies in the discipline of human sexuality conducted. It's obviously the most important one, in 2014. So before I get into the study, I just want to remind everyone of the studies that we've already done for complete androgen sensitivity syndrome. So does everyone remember the case study about maybe like a month ago about Sherry Graveman? She actually didn't know she had complete androgen sensitivity syndrome for about 20 years, and her doctors and family lied to her about it, and it caused a lot of psychological trauma in her day-to-day life. But besides that really depressing case study, I'm looking forward to sharing more of an uplifting study that talks about arousal and pornographic stimuli. So before I get into my case, I just want to explain a little bit of what we already know about complete androgen sensitivity syndrome. So CAIS is defined by a mutation on the X chromosome for the androgen receptor gene. So what that means is that any androgen receptor that's supposedly made for the cells in a woman with CAHS cannot uptake or recognize testosterone. So what that does for the woman is that it inhibits the growth of any sort of reproductive system internally, and only results in the short vagina and limited breast development. So what this also does is renders the women infertile because they obviously can't have children if they don't have any internal structures. So just some background on my case before I dive into the study. A major question in the field of research in human sexuality with complete androgen sensitivity syndrome is what the causes of the development of sexual orientation is in women with complete androgen sensitivity syndrome. Is it androgens? Are estrogens involved? Or is it the presence of a Y chromosome? So what this study discovered is that women with complete androgen sensitivity syndrome are ideal candidates for the study. And what I just mentioned, the major question in this field, is what was studied in my research. Or not my research, the researcher's research. So the title of the study was Brain Responses to Sexual Images in 46 XY Women with Complete Androgen Sensitivity Syndrome. And this was published in 2014 in Hormones and Behavior. So the researchers hypothesized that women with CAS exhibit female-typical responses to sexual images. And by female-typical, they mean heterosexual, which could be problematic, but we're just going to assume that it's fine for this study. And then overall in this study, it was generalized in their hypothesis that brain development is directed by androgens instead of the presence of a Y chromosome, or in cases without a CAS, the lack of the Y chromosome. So researchers recruited 13 men from their local communities with a mean age of 27, as well as 13 women without CAS with a mean age of 28 from their local communities. And the researchers actually recruited 13 women with CAS from the National Association of Androgen Sensitivity Syndrome and Other Disorders of Sexual Development, and they had a mean age of 38 years. So in my study, in order to gauge some sort of sense about how aroused each of the subject groups were as a result of being shown the stimuli, the researchers placed each of the subjects into an fMRI to monitor blood flow, especially to the amygdala in their brain. So after being shown images, each subject was asked to rate each of the 6 stimuli that I'm going to explain in a minute as like, neutral, or dislike. And after they were removed from the fMRI and asked to rate each stimulus on a scale of 1 to 5 from least arousing to most arousing. So the 6 stimuli that I just mentioned were heterosexual couples, female nudes, male nudes, lesbian couples, gay couples, and non-sexual stimuli as a control. So the results of this should not be that surprising. They essentially aligned with the sexual orientations that everyone said that they were. So, for example, all of the heterosexual women in the study responded more to the male nudes than the female nudes, as seen in this bar. So the men in this study rated the male nudes as mostly a 1, while the women and the CIS women did not rate it very highly, but significantly higher than the men did. And it's the same example for the nude female images that were shown, the men were much more aroused by the nude female images than were the women and CIS women. So more specifically, just some results that I can share with you from this study. Men showed greater amygdala activation after seeing female nudes than did the control women, and this was significant with a p-value of less than 0.5. And similarly, the men showed greater bilateral amygdala activation after seeing female nudes than did the women with CIS. And ironically, the least statistically significant result provided us with the most informative results was that there was no activational differences between the women with or without CIS after seeing any of the 6 stimuli. So I'm just going to reiterate exactly what I just said. There was no statistical difference between the women with and without CIS after seeing any of the 6 stimuli. So what that means is that the composition of a woman's brain and a woman's brain who also has CIS is essentially not that different when it comes to arousal. And what that suggests, especially at the end of the study, is that the Y chromosome is not sufficient for male typical brain development. So what this is saying is that even though a woman with CIS who inherently has an X and a Y chromosome still has female typical arousal patterns, even though she has a Y chromosome. So just some criticisms of this study that I really enjoyed picking apart because they did a really bad job in this study. Was there were only 39 subjects, only a third of which actually had CIS. So I definitely would not say that 13 women with CIS could represent the entire population in the world of women with CAIS. And another topic that I would criticize, and Judith helped me criticize a bit, was the age discrepancy between the groups and the control groups and the group with CIS women. The CIS women were on average 10 years older than the women, the control women and the control men. So that could lead to a lot of bias, especially how you all learned on how sexuality develops over the lifespan. But I didn't learn, I didn't read. Another topic that definitely needs to be covered in future research is homosexuality and bisexuality in women with CAIS. Definitely because the study heavily researched the effects of hormones in the development of sexual orientation, which impact the arousal, which is the entire point of the study, and they completely obliterated the homosexuality and bisexuality possibility in CIS women. So I'd like to see that in further studies. And finally, I never mentioned that there is complete androgen sensitivity syndrome, and then there's incomplete androgen sensitivity syndrome. So under IAIS, there's mild and partial AIS, which can even result in male phenotypic development as a contrast to female phenotypic development that we've seen. So there have been cases where males have been born genetically and phenotypically with IAIS, and there has not been research done on the sexual orientation of those groups of people. So I'd like to see that as well. Thank you.